Thank you so much for having me. My name's Erin Spink from Spinktank, and I'm here to talk to you about volunteer engagement. I've got a formula for volunteer engagement, and I'm willing to share it with you, so grab a pen and paper, and I'll walk you through it. The first thing I want you to do is to write down the number of volunteers you work with on a weekly basis. Add to that the number of hours each volunteer typically works in a week. Now multiply that by the number of years they've been active with the National Trust. And if you're not sure, 2 is a good average. Now I want you to divide that by the number of hours of training that you offer. Again, if you're not sure, 2 is a good average. Great, so you've got your number. That's your volunteer engagement quotient. And guess what that tells you on a scale of 1 to 100 about volunteer engagement? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And the reason it doesn't tell you anything is because it doesn't tell you about impact. It doesn't tell you about the difference volunteers are making when you partner with them. So what is the deal with volunteer engagement? Well, quite simply, engagement, whether it's for paid staff or volunteers, is the engagement of someone's head, hands, and heart while they're with you. And I've got 4 golden rules to share with you. Spink's first golden rule of volunteer engagement is the rule of 50%. Engagement is a two-way street where you can provide opportunities, support, and an environment conducive to engagement, but volunteers have to meet you halfway. But before you go thinking you're off the hook, the corollary to Spink's 50% rule is that if you're the staff partner, which I understand many of you are, you own 100% of that 50%. Spink's second golden rule of volunteer engagement is you're not Captain Kirk. Here's the thing about engagement. It's about people. And because it's about people, not processes, cycles, and all sorts of bureaucratic nonsense we like to bury it under, it means it's about leadership. Captain Kirk isn't standing at the front of the starship commanding engage to a group of volunteers. You're in this together. These are people you're working with to do amazing things that preserve the heritage of your country for future generations. Engagement, like leadership, isn't something you do to someone, it's something you do with someone. So in that 100% of your 50%, you'll do things like have work prepared for them so that they can get right down to business, making a difference. You'll get to know them, and you might be surprised at what you find out. You'll also spend time encouraging them and getting to know them, letting them know when they're doing things right and helping them perfect other things too. It may also mean letting them take the lead and learning from them when they have skills that are better or more advanced than you or just simply different. This may be the hardest thing for you to hear, but engagement involves giving up some control. Captain Kirk wasn't running around the ship doing everybody's job. In fact, he was constantly relying on the expertise of his team. He was always asking Scotty to beam him up. Put your ego aside and consider this. There are smarter people than you out there who are volunteering with you. You may not have met them, but like unicorns and unfunny Canadians, they theoretically do exist. This is an exciting thing, especially as more and more people want to use those great skills that they have to help us and our organizations. And it is a proven fact that your IQ does not diminish when you volunteer. This brings me to Spink's third golden rule of volunteer engagement. You are Captain Kirk. Don't get confused. How many times did you see Captain Kirk sweaty, running his guts out to save the Starship Enterprise? Every damn episode. That man was present, and he was enthusiastic. His passion was so great that we hung on every word that dropped from his mouth. We were swept up by him, and his enthusiasm was so great that even if you were the guy wearing the red shirt and knew you were going to die as soon as you beamed down to that alien planet, you still went with him. And as leaders, and if you're wondering, you in the back there, you wondering if you're a leader? Well, you are, so let's just put that aside. It doesn't matter if you're a retail manager, house manager, gardener, or ranger, you are a leader. And volunteers come to the National Trust because they believe in what you're trying to achieve, whether that's an amazing experience for visitors, the health and well-being of animals, or keeping the past alive and relevant. You believe in what you do, and your job as a leader and leader of volunteers is to help them be a part of making this belief a reality. Leadership has to involve more than just you. You can't be the only one who believes in what you do or does what you do. And miracle upon miracle, you have people open to or already believing that what you do is important. That what you do makes a difference, and they want to be part of it. And here's one more miracle. They're willing to share their number one non-renewable resource, their time, with you to make that a reality. So your job in working with volunteers is to provide that landscape, that 50%, so volunteers can help make your department's vision a reality, to boldly go where no one has gone before. The biggest secret I can share with you about volunteer engagement is that it's just as much about you believing in them and what they can bring to the team as it is about them believing in your vision. Volunteer engagement is about helping people shine, because when they use their head, their hands, and their hearts, they shine, and that is transformative. The corollary to this rule is the one small limitation of volunteer engagement. Have you spotted it? Well, here it is. The only problem with volunteers is that they're people. Trademark. As soon as I write that book, it is bound to become the all-time best-selling volunteer management book ever. Here's a tip. Instead of looking at a situation and saying, I've got a volunteer problem, take the volunteer word out of there and exchange it for people. So if you've got someone who shows up late to shifts, that's not a volunteer problem, that's a people problem. If you've got somebody who comes and wants to spend more time socializing and chatting than working, that's not a volunteer problem, that's a people problem. Volunteers are going to bring all the same baggage as anyone else does to a situation. And when we remove the word volunteer, we seem to have a lot more ideas and a lot more comfort in working with that people to resolve those issues. You might be hearing this and thinking, whoa, this is not what I signed up for. I'm just a blank, and that sounds like way too much pressure for me. Let me reassure you, leaders aren't perfect. Volunteer engagement isn't sexy all the time, or even a lot of the time. It's grungy, in the trenches work, and it's grueling, and you'll make mistakes. You'll be human, and that's okay. There's no exact science to engagement. It's more art, and art always comes from people giving real effort in whatever way is meaningful for you. It doesn't matter if you're an introvert or a ginger, or horror, an introverted ginger. If you do your best and try, you will succeed. But here's Spink's golden rule number 4. I want you to think about effort differently, and I want you to think about how you think about engaging volunteers differently in 2 key ways, using mirrors as an analogy. The first is that, to be a mirror, you reflect light. Consider this: which mirror has more impact? One who only reflects 1 or 2 candles with struggling flames, or one with plenty of candles that are flickering away strongly? Be the mirror with more candles and brighter candles, because at the end of the day, it's that mirror that's more successful. So you may think that you're a ranger or a gardener or a retail or house manager, but in fact, you're a leader of volunteers first and foremost. And your success as a staff partner to volunteers is as crucial to the success of the National Trust as your professional skills in those domains. The second mirror analogy is that, like mirrors, who you are and what you do gets reflected back to you. The power of volunteer engagement is reputational, it's financial, it's mission delivering, and it's community building, because when we partner successfully with volunteers, we have more positive ambassadors who can share information and stories about the good work we do. We have more people willing to give time and money, and we enhance our reputation, and we're more likely to achieve goals that bring us closer to achieving our mission. We have a whole slew of people who have seen directly the impact of the work that we do and who will stand up for us when we face funding cuts or bad press or the onslaught of public scrutiny that is just the norm in modern days. In closing, volunteer engagement is an outcome. It's not a verb, and it's not an activity that you can slot into your calendar. It's the culmination of all your efforts, the environment, and the organizational culture you create. And it's easy to tell when someone is trying to engage us. So don't forget the golden rules, and above all, have fun. Thanks for having me, and have a great Convestival 2016.